The Valari Dominion had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. They had crushed 17 star systems under their rule. Their ships were beautiful and deadly, moving through space like silver ghosts. Their weapons could cut through asteroids like a hot knife through butter. No species had ever defeated them in battle. Admiral Tvek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, and looked at the blue planet on his view screen. Earth, the humans called it. Such a small world. Such a young species. His intelligence officers told him that humans had only discovered space travel a few hundred years ago. They were babies compared to the Valari. "Send a standard message," Tvek ordered. His voice was bored. He had done this many times before. Surrender or face extinction. They have 7 rotations to decide. The communication officer sent the transmission. Tvek expected crying. He expected begging. He expected the humans to fall on their knees and accept Valari rule, just like every other species had done. Instead, a woman appeared on his screen. She had dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple military uniform with the words United Earth Defense Command on her chest. Her name tag said, Yuna. "Admiral Tyvek," she said. Her voice was polite but not afraid. "We would prefer to negotiate. Perhaps we can find a peaceful solution." Tyvek was surprised. Most species screamed or cried when they saw his fleet. This human woman looked like she was ordering coffee. He found himself curious about these strange creatures. "Very well," he said. "Send a delegation to my ship. We will discuss terms." 3 hours later, a small human shuttle docked with the Eternal Victory. Tvek watched on the security cameras as the humans stepped out. There were 5 of them. The woman named Yuna led the group. Behind her walked a stocky man with a serious face. His name tag said, Doan. He was clearly a soldier, but what caught Tvek's attention were the weapons the humans carried. "What are those?" asked Korvath, his weapons officer. He was pointing at the metal tubes the human soldiers held. "Scanning now," said the science officer. A moment later, he laughed. "Admiral, you will not believe this. They are using projectile weapons. They fire small pieces of metal using chemical explosions." The entire bridge crew burst into laughter. Tvek himself could not hide his smile. Projectile weapons? Chemical propulsion? These humans were even more primitive than he had thought. "Our shields can stop asteroids traveling at 1,000 kilometers per second," Korvath said, wiping tears from his eyes. "These little metal pieces would bounce off like raindrops." The human delegation was brought to the conference room. Tvek made sure to display his amusement openly. He wanted these humans to understand how hopeless their situation was. "Welcome to the Eternal Victory," he said. "I must say, I am impressed that you came. Most species simply surrender when they see our fleet." Yuna sat down across from him. Her face showed nothing. "We prefer to explore all options before making decisions." "Of course." Tvek gestured at the confiscated weapons on the table. "I hope you do not mind. We had to take these for security reasons. Though I must admit, I am curious. Why do you still use such primitive tools?" Dawan spoke for the first time. "They work." Korvath picked up one of the rifles and examined it. "This technology is thousands of years out of date. Even our children's toys are more advanced. Do humans not have energy weapons? Plasma cannons? Anything that might actually pose a threat?" "We have what we need," Yuna said simply. The Valari laughed again. Tvek noticed that the humans did not react. They sat quietly, watching, waiting. Something about their calmness bothered him, but he pushed the feeling aside. What threat could such primitives possibly pose? The negotiations went poorly. Tvek demanded complete surrender. Earth would become a mining colony. Humans would serve the Dominion as workers and servants. Their culture would be erased. Their children would be taught to worship Valari masters. Una listened to all of this without expression. When Tivek finished, she shook her head. Those terms are not acceptable. Tivek leaned forward. You do not understand your position, human. We have 300 warships in orbit around your planet. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a continent. You have no choice. There is always a choice, Una replied. We choose to defend our home. Korvath laughed so hard, he nearly fell out of his chair. With what? Those metal tubes? You could fire them at us for 1,000 years and never scratch our paint. Una stood up. Her delegation stood with her. Then I suppose we have nothing more to discuss. Thank you for your time, Admiral. Tivek was annoyed. He had expected the humans to be more reasonable. Did they not understand what was about to happen? Did they truly believe they could fight the Valari Dominion? You are making a mistake, he warned. When my fleet attacks, there will be no mercy. Your cities will burn. Your people will die. And you will wish you had accepted my generous offer. Una looked at him with those calm, dark eyes. Perhaps, but we would rather die free than live as slaves. The human delegation left. Tivek watched them go, feeling a strange mix of annoyance and respect. These creatures were foolish, but they were brave. It was almost a shame that they would have to be destroyed. Begin attack preparations, he ordered. In 7 rotations, we wiped them out. On the shuttle back to Earth, Una sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Dowan spoke. They scanned the weapons. I know. They only looked at the surface. They saw the metal and the chemical propellants. They did not look deeper. Una allowed herself a small smile. That was the point. Let them think we are primitives. Let them laugh at our rifles and our bullets. They will learn soon enough. Dowan nodded. The Defense Council wants to know if we should begin evacuations. No. Una looked out the window at the stars. If we evacuate, they will know something is wrong. They will be careful. I want them confident. I want them to attack with everything they have, certain of their victory. She paused. That is when they will be most vulnerable. And if our weapons do not work? Una turned to look at him. Her eyes were not calm anymore. They were hard like steel. They will work. Humanity has been preparing for this moment for 200 years. We knew someone would come eventually. Someone bigger. Someone stronger. Someone who looked at us and saw only prey. She looked back at the stars. We are not prey, Dowan. We never were. On the Eternal Victory, Admiral Tivek held one of the human rifles in his hands. It was heavy, simple, almost elegant in its primitiveness. He could not understand why these creatures had not developed better weapons. Were they stupid? Were they lazy? He tossed the rifle aside and looked at Earth on his view screen. 7 days, he murmured. 7 days, and this world will belong to the Dominion. He had no idea how wrong he was dot in the underground bunkers beneath the mountains of Earth. General Taiwu watched the Valari fleet on his holographic display. 300 ships, each one bristling with weapons that could level cities. Beside him stood Dr. G1, a small woman with tired eyes and messy hair. She had not slept in 3 days. She had been too busy running final checks on the weapon systems. Are we ready? Taiwu asked. G1 nodded slowly. The Singularity warheads are armed. The delivery systems are online. We can launch on your command. Taiwu stared at the enemy fleet. So many ships. So much power. The Valari thought they were invincible. They were about to learn that they were not. May God forgive us, he whispered, for what we are about to do. 7 days passed like a heartbeat. Admiral, Tevek stood on the bridge of the Eternal Victory and watched his fleet move into attack formation. 300 warships arranged themselves in a perfect crescent shape around Earth. This formation had crushed 100 worlds. It would crush this one too. All ships report ready, Korvath announced. Weapons charged. Shields at full power. Tivik nodded. He felt a small twinge of disappointment. He had hoped the humans would see reason. He had hoped they would surrender and spare themselves the coming horror. But they had remained silent for 7 days. No messages. No pleas for mercy. Nothing. Perhaps they had simply accepted their fate. Begin the attack, Tivik ordered. Target their major cities first. I want them to see their civilization burn. The Valari fleet moved forward. On every ship, weapon systems powered up. Plasma lances glowed with deadly energy. Torpedo tubes loaded their payloads. This would be over quickly. Then the sensors detected something. Admiral, the science officer said, his voice confused. We are detecting launches from the planet's surface. Thousands of them. Tivik looked at his tactical display. Small dots were rising from Earth, spreading out in all directions. Missiles. Chemical propulsion. Incredibly slow compared to Valari weapons. Is this their defense? Korvath asked. He sounded almost offended. Primitive rockets? Tivik studied the readings. The missiles were small. Their propulsion systems were laughably simple. They would take several minutes to reach the fleet. Valari plasma torpedoes could cross the same distance in seconds. Do not waste power on them, Tivik commanded. Our shields will stop anything they throw at us. Continue the attack. The fleet pressed forward. The human missiles grew closer. Tivik watched them on his display with mild curiosity. What did the humans hope to accomplish? Did they truly believe these simple weapons could harm his ships? The first missiles reached the outer edge of the fleet. Tivik watched his shields activate, ready to see the missiles bounce harmlessly away. The missiles passed through the shields, like they were not there. For a moment, Tivik did not understand what he was seeing. The shields were working. The readings showed full power, but the missiles were simply ignoring them. Then the missiles hit their targets. The explosions were unlike anything Tivik had ever seen. They were not fire or plasma or radiation. They were something else entirely. Space itself seemed to twist and collapse around each impact point. Ships did not explode. They crumpled. They folded in on themselves, like paper being crushed by an invisible hand. In 3 heartbeats, 47 Valari warships ceased to exist. The bridge of the Eternal Victory fell silent. Every officer stared at the tactical display in horror. Where 47 ships had been, there was now only debris and darkness. That is impossible, Korvath whispered. His face was pale. Our shields should have stopped them. Our shields stop everything. The science officer was frantically working at his station. His hands were shaking. Admiral, I am analyzing the weapon signatures. These missiles are not using kinetic force. They are not using energy weapons. He looked up, his eyes wide with fear. They are creating gravitational singularities. Tiny black holes. Our shields are designed to stop energy and matter. These weapons are bending space itself. Tivik felt cold spread through his body. Gravitational weapons. The humans had gravitational weapons. Such technology was theoretical even for the Valari. The most advanced species in the Dominion had never managed to weaponize gravity, and the humans were using it in missiles. All ships, evasive action. Tivik shouted, Target those missiles. Destroy them before they reach us. But it was too late. The second wave was already arriving. More ships crumpled. More space twisted and collapsed. Tivik watched his fleet die on his tactical display. Each death was silent. Each death was complete. The gravitational weapons left no survivors, no wreckage, nothing but emptiness. "We are losing ships faster than we can count," Korvath reported. His voice was cracking. 67 destroyed. 82, 91. "Retreat," Tivik ordered. "All ships retreat to the asteroid belt. Get us out of range." The Valari fleet turned and ran. They had never retreated before. In 3,000 years of conquest, no enemy had ever made them flee. But these humans, these primitive creatures with their chemical rockets and metal bullets, had done the impossible. They had drawn blood. On Earth, General Taiwu watched the Valari fleet retreat. The holographic display showed over 100 enemy ships destroyed. The rest were fleeing toward the asteroid belt as fast as their engines could carry them. Around him, the command center erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other. Some were crying. They had done it. They had hurt the invaders, but Taiwu did not celebrate. He knew this was only the beginning. Beside him, Dr. G1 was studying the battle data. The Singularity warheads performed better than expected. Yield was 12% higher than our projections. "Will they adapt?" Taiwu asked. G1 nodded slowly. "They will. They are not stupid. Now that they know what our weapons do, they will find ways to counter them. We have bought ourselves time, but not victory." Taiwu looked at the retreating enemy fleet. Still nearly 200 ships. Still enough firepower to destroy Earth 10 times over. And this was just the first wave. The Valari Dominion had thousands of ships across their empire. When word of this battle spread, they would send more. "How long until they adapt?" he asked. "Unknown. Days, weeks, maybe longer." Jiwan pushed her messy hair out of her face. "But they will adapt. Every species does. Then we need to stay ahead of them." Taiwu turned to his communications officer. "Get me Admiral Yuna. We need to discuss Phase 2. In orbit around Saturn, hidden among the rings of ice and rock, Admiral Yuna received the battle report. 138 enemy ships destroyed. 0 human casualties. It was a victory beyond their wildest hopes, but Yuna did not smile. She stood on the bridge of her command ship, the Silent Thunder, and studied the tactical data. The Valari had retreated, but they had not been destroyed. They would regroup. They would analyze what had happened. They would find weaknesses. "Ma'am," her tactical officer Hyok said, "the Defense Council is requesting a status update. They want to know our next move." Yuna thought carefully before answering. The Singularity weapons had worked perfectly, but they were not unlimited. Earth had spent 200 years building its arsenal, but against the Galactic Empire, even 2 centuries of preparation might not be enough. "Tell them we proceed with the original plan," she said. "The Valari will not give up after one defeat. They will call for reinforcements. They will come back with more ships and new strategies." She looked at the distant stars. "We need to be ready for them, and if we cannot stop them..." Yuna turned to face Hyok. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. "Then we make them pay such a terrible price that they will never threaten another world again. We may not survive, but we will make sure they remember us." Hyok swallowed nervously. "The Ghost Fleet is standing by. The Asteroid Defense Network is operational. Project Voidwalker is at 70% completion." Yuna nodded. "Good. Keep all systems on standby. And increase patrols around the outer planets. I want to know the moment they try to move." Far away, in the asteroid belt, Admiral Tivik counted his dead. 138 ships. Thousands of Valari lives. Gone in minutes. Destroyed by weapons that should not exist, wielded by creatures that should have been helpless. He had made a terrible mistake. He had underestimated the humans. He had laughed at their primitive weapons while ignoring the possibility that they might have something more. That mistake had cost him half his fleet. "Send a message to High Command," Tivek ordered. His voice was quiet and cold. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them the humans are more dangerous than we believed. Tell them—" He paused, struggling to find the words. "Tell them we may have awakened something terrible." Korvath looked at him with haunted eyes. "What do we do now, Admiral?" Tivek stared at the distant blue dot of Earth. Such a small world. Such a young species. And yet they had done what no one else had ever done. They had made the Valari afraid. "Now," Tivek said slowly, "we learn. We study their weapons. We find their weaknesses. And we prepare." His hands clenched into fists. "This war is not over. It has only begun." But deep in his heart, a voice whispered a terrifying truth. The humans had been preparing for this fight for 200 years. They had built weapons that bent the fabric of reality. They had hidden their true strength behind primitive rifles and calm smiles. What else were they hiding? Tivek was afraid to find out. Admiral Tivek had never felt fear like this before. He sat alone in his quarters, staring at the casualty reports. 138 ships. Over 50,000 Valari soldiers, engineers, and crew members gone. Wiped out by creatures the Dominion had classified as primitives. His hands would not stop shaking. He had sent his report to High Command 3 days ago. The response had been swift and angry. High Chancellor Morath herself had contacted him, her face twisted with disbelief and fury. "Explain this," she had demanded. The humans were surveyed 80 of their years ago. They had barely reached their own moon. They were using nuclear fission for power. How did they develop weapons that bend gravity? Tivek had no answer. He only knew that his fleet was broken, and his confidence was shattered. Now he sat in the darkness, trying to understand what had gone wrong. The Valari had conquered 17 star systems. They had crushed species that were far more advanced than humans appeared to be. How had these creatures from a small blue world managed to hurt them so badly? He needed information. He needed to understand his enemy. Tivek called his intelligence officers to his quarters. "I want to know everything about the humans," he ordered. "Their history, their technology, their culture, everything. Use every probe we have. I do not care how many we lose. I need to understand these creatures." The officers obeyed. Over the next several days, dozens of small spy drones were sent toward Earth. Most were destroyed by human countermeasures. The humans seemed to know every frequency, every approach vector, every trick the Valari used. But a few probes got through. A few managed to tap into human communication, networks, and gathered data. The information they returned changed everything. Tivek read the reports with growing horror. Humans had a concept they called warfare. Not the clean, efficient fleet actions of the Dominion. Something messier. Something that evolved constantly. Human history was soaked in blood. They had been fighting each other for 10,000 years. They had developed weapons to kill from a distance. Then they developed armor to stop those weapons. Then they developed better weapons to pierce the armor. Then better armor. Then better weapons. On and on, an endless cycle of death and adaptation. They called it an arms race. Every time someone built a defense, someone else found a way to break it. Every time someone created a weapon, someone else found a way to counter it. Humans did not just fight wars. They evolved through them. Korvath brought him another report. "Admiral, you need to see this." The report detailed human weapons development over the past 2 centuries. After humans discovered they were not alone in the universe, they had begun preparing for contact. But they had not prepared for friendship. They had prepared for war. Chemical slut throwers were just the surface. Beneath that primitive exterior, humans had developed nuclear weapons. Biological agents, directed energy systems, nanoscale machines that could eat through any material, and finally, gravitational manipulation technology. And those were just the weapons they knew about. The probes had detected references to something called Project Voidwalker, but all files related to it were protected by security systems the Valari could not crack. They have contingencies for their contingencies, Corveth said. His voice was hollow. Their military doctrine assumes every weapon will eventually be countered. So they develop the counter to the counter before the enemy even adapts. Tivik felt sick. The rifles. The simple metal tubes that fired chemical-propelled slugs. They had not been a sign of weakness. They had been a mask. A deliberate deception to make enemies underestimate them. We were so busy laughing at their bullets, Tivik murmured, that we never thought to ask what else they might have. The next report was even more disturbing. Human psychology. Unlike the Valari, who fought only when victory was certain, humans fought even when the odds were hopeless. They had a concept called last stand, where warriors would fight to the death against overwhelming enemies rather than surrender. They admired this behavior. They told stories about it. They taught their children to value it. They also had something called mutually assured destruction. During one of their many wars against each other, humans had built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet multiple times over. Both sides knew that using these weapons would mean the end of everything. And yet they built them anyway. They pointed them at each other for decades, each side knowing that starting a war would mean extinction for everyone. They had lived like that for generations, balanced on the edge of total annihilation. And it had not broken them. It had made them stronger. Tvek put down the report and covered his face with his hands. What kind of species was this? What kind of creatures lived under the shadow of self-destruction and emerged more powerful? His door chimed. He looked up to see his science officer, a young female named Vekris. She looked frightened. Admiral, we have completed our analysis of the human gravitational weapons. And? Vekris hesitated. The technology is unlike anything we have seen. It creates micro-singularities, tiny black holes, that exist for only a fraction of a second before collapsing. But in that fraction of a second, they generate gravitational forces strong enough to crush any matter caught within their radius. Can we defend against them? Perhaps. We are working on modifications to our shields. If we can generate counter-gravitational fields, we might be able to destabilize the singularities before they fully form. Vekris paused. But Admiral, that is not what concerns me. What does concern you? Vekris took a deep breath. The humans developed this technology in less than 200 years. We have been trying to weaponize gravity for over 1,000 years. Our best scientists said it was impossible. She met his eyes. These creatures figured it out in the blink of an eye. If they can do that, what else can they do? What will they develop in the next 100 years? The next 50? Tavak had no answer. On Earth, Dr. Jiwan stood before the Defense Council and delivered her assessment. The Valari will adapt, she said. They've already begun analyzing our weapons. Within weeks, perhaps days, they will develop countermeasures for the singularity warheads. General Taiwu leaned forward. What do you recommend? We cannot rely on a single weapon system. We need to show them that no matter what they do, we will always have something new. Jiwan pulled up a holographic display. I propose we begin deployment of secondary systems. The nanomachine swarms. The asteroid redirect network. The quantum disruptors. Admiral Yuna spoke from her position on the video screen. She was still aboard the Silent Thunder, hidden in Saturn's rings. If we reveal all our weapons at once, we lose the element of surprise. If we hold back too much, we lose the war, Jiwan countered. The Valari will call for reinforcements. They will come back with hundreds of ships, maybe thousands. We need to show them that no number is enough. We need to break their will to fight. The council debated for hours. In the end, they agreed on a middle path. Some weapons would be held in reserve. Others would be deployed in the next engagement. And Project Voidwalker would continue its development in secret. Taiwu found Jiwan after the meeting, standing alone on a balcony overlooking the underground city. Her eyes were tired. Her shoulders were slumped. "You look troubled," he said. Jiwan laughed bitterly. "We killed 50,000 beings today. 50,000 lives ended by weapons I helped design. And I know we will kill many more before this is over." She looked at him. "Does that not trouble you, General?" Taiwu was silent for a long moment. "It does," he finally admitted. "But I think of what would happen if we did not fight. I think of the Valari landing on Earth, burning our cities, enslaving our children. I think of everything we would lose." He put a hand on her shoulder. "We did not choose this war, Jiwan, but we will finish it." Jiwan nodded slowly. "I just hope that when it is over, we can still recognize ourselves." Far away, in the asteroid belt, Admiral Tivek received word that reinforcements were coming. 800 ships. A full battle group led by Fleet Master Sareth, the greatest military commander in the Dominion. Sareth had conquered the Kithani Nebula. He had crushed species that made the Valari look primitive. If anyone could defeat the humans, it was SRE to Tvek should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt a growing dread. He had read the human history reports. He had seen how they adapted, how they evolved, how they turned every setback into a new weapon. Sareth was coming with 800 ships and absolute confidence. Tivek wondered how many of those ships would survive. Fleet Master Sareth arrived with the fury of a storm. 800 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. They were the finest vessels in the Valari Dominion, crewed by veterans of 100 campaigns. At their head flew the Immortal Blade, Sareth's personal flagship, a massive dreadnought that had never lost a battle. Sareth stood on his bridge and looked at the distant blue dot of Earth. Such a small world to cause such big problems. Admiral. Tivek's shuttle docked with the Immortal Blade an hour after the fleet's arrival. Sareth received him in his war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Sol system in perfect detail. "Your failure was one of imagination," Sareth said without greeting. His voice was cold. "You underestimated them. You laughed at their weapons while they prepared to destroy you." Tivek bowed his head. "You are correct, Fleet Master. I made a terrible mistake." "You did." Sareth turned to face the displays. "But I will not repeat it. I have studied your battle records. I have analyzed their weapons. These gravitational missiles are dangerous, yes, but they are not magic. They can be countered." "How?" Sareth smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Their weapons require time to reach us. Even with their advanced warheads, they're still using chemical propulsion. Slow, predictable." He tapped a control, and the display changed to show his battle plan. "We will attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. We will spread out so wide that they cannot target all of us at once. And we will move fast. By the time their missiles reach our original positions, we will be somewhere else entirely." Tivek studied the plan. It was sound. It might even work. But something still bothered him. "Fleet Master, the humans have been preparing for this war for 2 centuries. The gravitational weapons were a surprise. What if they have other surprises?" Sareth laughed. "They are one small planet with limited resources. We have an empire spanning 17 star systems. No matter what tricks they have, they cannot have enough. We will overwhelm them with sheer numbers. We will crush them with the weight of our civilization. The attack began 12 hours later. 800 Valari warships spread out across the Sol system like a net closing around prey. They came from every direction. From above the plane of the planets. From below. From the outer darkness beyond the last planet. They moved fast and they moved together. A coordinated wave of destruction. Admiral Yuna watched them come from her position aboard the Silent Thunder. Her tactical displays lit up with enemy signatures. So many ships. More than 3 times the number they had faced before. All units, begin Phase 1 deployment, she ordered. Her voice was calm. It had to be. Her people were looking to her for strength. The Singularity missiles launched. Thousands of them, rising from hidden bases on Earth, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. They spread out to meet the incoming fleet. Sareth's ships scattered as planned. The missiles, slow and stupid compared to the maneuvering warships, missed their targets more often than they hit. But they still hit. 50 ships died in the first wave. 60 in the second died. It was not enough that the Valari fleet pushed forward, absorbing losses but maintaining formation. They were getting closer to Earth, close enough for their own weapons to reach the planet. They are adapting, Hayek reported. Their evasion patterns are improving. They are learning to predict our targeting. Yuna nodded. She had expected this. Begin Phase 2. On the surface of Earth's moon, ancient machines woke from their long sleep. They had been built in secret, buried beneath the lunar surface where no Valari probe could find them. Now they powered up, their engines roaring to life. The moon began to move. It was not much. Just a slight adjustment to its orbit. A gentle push in a new direction. But that push was enough to place the moon directly in the path of Sareth's primary attack force. On the bridge of the Immortal Blade, Sareth stared at his displays in disbelief. They can move moons, he whispered. The 300 ships of his main force had to change course or be crushed. They scattered, breaking formation, losing their coordinated attack pattern. In that moment of chaos, the Singularity missile struck again. 70 more ships died. But Sareth was not defeated. He was the greatest military mind in the Dominion. He had faced impossible odds before. Continue the attack, he commanded. All ships, ignore the moon. Focus on the planet. If we can destroy their command centers, their weapons will have no guidance. The fleet regrouped and pressed forward. They were past the moon now, entering the inner solar system. Earth grew larger on their view screens. Victory seemed possible. Then the asteroids came, not random space rocks. These were weapons. Thousands of asteroids from the belt between Mars and Jupiter, each one fitted with human engines, each one guided by human computers. They fell toward the Valari fleet like a rain of stone. Some carried Singularity warheads. When they struck, ships crumpled and died as before. Others carried something worse. Clouds of tiny machines, too small to see, too many to count. They spread through the vacuum like silver mist. When they touched Valari hull plating, they began to eat. Nanomachines. Self-replicating robots that consumed metal and used it to make more of themselves. They ate through armor like acid through paper. Ships fell apart from the inside, their crews screaming as the air escaped through 1,000 tiny holes. Sareth lost 200 ships in the first hour of the asteroid bombardment. Fall back, he finally ordered. His voice cracked with desperation. All ships, fall back to the asteroid belt. The retreat was chaos. Ships fled in every direction, pursued by asteroids and missiles and clouds of hungry machines. The organized fleet that had arrived with such confidence was now a scattered mob of survivors running for their lives. Admiral Yuna watched the enemy flee, but she did not order her forces to stop. Activate the Ghost Fleet, she commanded. Throughout the outer solar system, ships that had appeared to be debris suddenly powered up. Hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as comets, buried in the rings of gas giants. Hundreds of unmanned vessels, each one carrying enough weapons to destroy a Volari cruiser. The Ghost Fleet rose from hiding and surrounded the retreating enemy. Fleet. Master Sareth found himself trapped out behind him. Earth's defenses continued to launch missiles and asteroids. Ahead of him, the Ghost Fleet blocked his escape. On all sides, weapons closed in for the kill. They were not defending, he realized at last. They were hurting us, driving us into a trap. Corvath, who had survived this long by pure luck, looked at his commander with hollow eyes. What do we do? Sareth had no answer. He had been outmaneuvered at every turn. Every strategy he tried, the humans had already countered. Every weapon he used, they had already prepared for. It was as if they could see the future, but they could not see the future. They were simply better at war than anyone the Volari had ever faced. The final assault lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Fleetmaster Sareth was dead, his flagship torn apart by weapons he could not understand. 800 Volari warships had been reduced to less than 50 survivors. Admiral Tevik was one of them. He had stayed at the back of the formation, letting others fight while he observed. He had watched the greatest military force in Dominion history be destroyed by a single planet. Now he floated in the wreckage, waiting for the humans to come and finish him off. Instead, a human voice crackled over his communication system. Volari survivors. This is Admiral Yuna of United Earth Defense Command. You are ordered to surrender. If you power down your weapons and lower your shields, you will not be harmed. You will be treated as prisoners of war according to human military law. Tivik laughed. It was a broken sound, full of despair and dark humor. They are offering us mercy, he said to no one. After everything we did. After we came here to enslave them and burn their world. They are offering us mercy. He thought about refusing. He thought about fighting to the end, dying with honor like a true Volari warrior. But what was the point? The humans had proven something today. They had proven that they were better. Not just stronger. Not just more advanced. Better. This is Admiral Tivik, he transmitted. I accept your terms. We surrender. He powered down his weapons and waited for the humans to come. The war for Sol was over. But Tivik knew that the real war was just beginning. The Dominion would not accept this defeat. They would send more ships, more weapons, more soldiers, and the humans would be waiting. Somehow, that thought did not frighten him anymore. It only made him sad for all the Volari who would die in the wars to come. Sad for all the lives that would be lost on both sides, and strangely, impossibly sad for the humans themselves, because Tivita had finally understood something important. The humans did not want this war. They did not enjoy killing. Every weapon they built, every strategy they developed, every victory they won, came with a cost to their souls. They were good at war because they had no choice. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Battle of Sol lasted 11 standard days. When it ended, the Volari Dominion had lost over 1,000 warships. More ships than they had lost in the entire previous century of conquest. The greatest military force their civilization had ever assembled had been broken against the defenses of a single planet. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had lived under Volari rule for generations suddenly began to ask questions. If the humans could defeat the Dominion, perhaps they could too. Rebellion sparked on a dozen worlds. The Volari military, already weakened by the losses at Sol, struggled to respond. An empire that had seemed invincible was suddenly crumbling from within. Admiral Tivik was brought to Earth as a prisoner of war. He expected to be tortured. He expected to be executed. He expected the humans to take revenge for the threats he had made, for the worlds the Dominion had conquered, for all the suffering his people had caused. Instead, he was given a clean room, good food, and medical treatment for his injuries. The humans who guarded him were polite but distant. They did not hate him. They did not fear him. They simply treated him as a defeated enemy who deserved basic dignity. It confused him more than torture would have. After 3 weeks in captivity, he was brought before the Human Command Council. The meeting took place in a simple conference room, not a throne room or a court of judgment. Admiral Yuna was there, along with General Taiwu and Dr. Jiwan. There were other leaders too, representing different nations and organizations. The humans, Tvek had learned, did not have a single ruler. They governed themselves through a complex system of elected representatives and appointed officials. It seemed impossibly chaotic. And yet it worked. Yuna spoke first. Her voice was the same as it had been at their first meeting. Calm, polite, unafraid. Admiral Tvek, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Tvek almost laughed, as if he had a choice. But he held his tongue and simply nodded. We want to discuss the future, Yuna continued. Not just the future of the Valari Dominion, but the future of the entire galaxy. What do you mean? General Taiwu leaned forward. His face was tired but determined. Your empire is falling apart. The species you conquered are rising up. Without your fleet to keep them in line, the Dominion will collapse within a few years. You think this pleases me? Tvek asked bitterly. We think it presents an opportunity. Yuna pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. The Dominion brought order to this region of space. A cruel order, built on conquest and slavery, but order nonetheless. Without it, there will be chaos. Wars between species. Conflicts over resources. Millions will die. Tvek frowned. You destroyed our fleet. You broke our power. Now you worry about the consequences. We did not want to destroy your fleet, Dr. Jiwan said quietly. She looked even more tired than Taiwu. We wanted to defend ourselves. There's a difference. Yuna nodded. Admiral, we have the power to destroy the Valari homeworld. We have weapons that could crack your planet like an egg. We could wipe out your species entirely and make sure you never threaten anyone again. Tvek felt cold spread through his body. He had suspected as much, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. But we do not want that, Yuna continued. We never did. We are not conquerors. We are not destroyers. We are just people who wanted to be left alone. Your Dominion would not let us be. She paused. Now we have a chance to build something better. Something that does not require conquest or slavery. Something based on cooperation and mutual respect. Tvek stared at her. You are offering us peace? We are offering you a choice. Yuna stood and walked closer to him. The Dominion can continue to fight. You can rebuild your fleet and try again. Maybe in 100 years, you will be strong enough to threaten Earth once more. Her eyes hardened. But by then, we will be stronger too. And we will not show mercy a second time. She let that sink in before continuing. Or the Dominion can choose a different path. You can release the species you have conquered. You can share your technology instead of hoarding it. You can join a new alliance of worlds, one where every species has a voice, and no one is forced to bow to another. You are asking us to give up everything we have built, Tvek said. We are asking you to build something better. Yuna returned to her seat. The choice is yours. Tvek sat in silence for a long time. He thought about the Dominion, about the centuries of conquest, about the worlds they had burned and the species they had enslaved. He thought about the pride of his people, the belief that they were destined to rule the stars. And he thought about the human missiles that had passed through their shields like they were not there. about the asteroids and nanomachines and the ghost fleet rising from hiding, about the weapons the humans had not even used, held in reserve for wars yet to come. Project Voidwalker. They still did not know what it was. Perhaps it was better not to know. "I cannot speak for the High Chancellor," he finally said. "I cannot promise that the Dominion will accept your terms." "We understand," Una replied, "but I can speak for myself." Tivik looked at the humans gathered before him. These strange creatures who had built weapons of unimaginable destruction and then offered mercy to their enemies. "I think you are either the wisest species in the galaxy or the most foolish. I cannot decide which." Una smiled slightly. "Perhaps both." The treaty negotiations took months. The Valari High Chancellor resisted at first, threatening war and destruction. But as more rebellions broke out across the Dominion, as more worlds declared independence, her position weakened. In the end, she had no choice. The Treaty of Sol was signed on the anniversary of the Battle of Sol. The Valari Dominion agreed to release all conquered species. They agreed to share their technology freely. They agreed to never again threaten another civilization with extinction. In return, humanity offered the same guarantees. And something more. They offered protection. Any species that joined the new Galactic Compact would be defended by human weapons. Any aggressor that tried to conquer or enslave would face the same fate as the Valari fleet. The galaxy would be at peace, not because war was impossible, but because war was no longer profitable. Admiral Tivek watched the signing ceremony from the crowd. He was no longer a prisoner. The humans had released him weeks ago, trusting him to keep his word. Another strange human custom. Una found him afterward. "You look thoughtful," she said. Tivik nodded slowly. "I am thinking about the rifles." "The rifles?" "When we first met, your soldiers carried primitive projectile weapons. We laughed at them. We thought they proved how weak you were." He turned to face her. "But they were a choice, were they not? You could have brought gravitational weapons. You could have shown us your true power from the beginning. Instead, you brought rifles." Una was quiet for a moment. "We wanted peace. We wanted to give you a chance to see us as something other than a threat. We hoped that if we seemed harmless, you might be willing to negotiate. It did not work. No, it did not." Una looked at the celebration around them. Humans and Valari and dozens of other species, all gathered to witness the birth of a new era. "But maybe next time it will." Tivik shook his head in wonder. "You are a terrifying species, only when we have to be." Una smiled her calm smile. "We would rather be friends." A century later, the Galactic Compact included 400 species. It was the largest and most peaceful alliance the galaxy had ever known. Wars still happened, but they were small and quickly resolved. The old days of conquest and slavery were fading into memory. The Valari became humanity's closest allies. United by their shared history, they worked together to explore the galaxy and discover its secrets. Tivek lived long enough to see his grandchildren grow up in a universe where no one feared invasion, where every species had a voice, where peace was the default rather than the exception. On his deathbed, he thought about the journey that had brought him here, the arrogance of his youth, the humiliation of defeat, the slow, painful process of learning to see humans as something other than enemies. He thought about Una, long dead now but remembered as one of the founders of the Compact. Her calm voice, her steady eyes, her absolute refusal to become the monster she fought against. "Thank you," he whispered to her memory, "for showing us a better way." In the archives of United Earth Defense Command, sealed in a vault that required 12 different keys to open, sat the plans for Project Voidwalker. No one had ever asked the humans what it was. No one wanted to know, but it was there, waiting, ready. Just in case. Because Humans had learned something important in their long history of war and survival. Peace was precious. Peace was worth fighting for. Peace was worth dying for. But peace was never guaranteed. And if the day ever came when peace failed, humanity would be ready. They always were.